introduction. We are very honored tonight to have two speakers. So Genevieve Singleton is speaking to us from Quw'utsun. I hope I've said that right. And she is also bringing with her tonight Philomena Williams, and I'll mention her in a moment. So we're delighted to have Genevieve as our guest speaker. She was originally from southern Vancouver Island, but lived in various regions of BC and Alberta before settling in the Cowichan Valley over 30 years ago. She has a BSc in ecology and a master's in counseling psychology. Together with her husband, landscape ecologist Dave Polster, Genevieve has dedicated her life and love of nature to numerous projects involving nature education and stewardship. These include nature programs associated with summer camps, 40 years as a nature interpreter, and her long affiliation with the Cowichan Estuary Nature Center. Genevieve and Dave were involved in the protection and care of Garry Oak ecosystems in the Cowichan Valley. Genevieve has worked with ethnobotanist Dr. Nancy Turner and Cowichan elders for many years, and the path of reconciliation is key to her work. She's currently co-chair of the Cowichan Stewardship Roundtable, which is a monthly forum that brings people together to do environmental work. Her study of the Hul'q'umi'num language, which with Cowichan elders, has enabled her to learn plants' traditional names and uses. I'm sorry I didn't pronounce that very well, but we're going to hear very soon how to pronounce it perfectly. Tonight, she will walk us through the Quw'utsun watershed to share this knowledge, and she has brought with us Philomena, also called Mina Williams, who is a Cowichan elder, and is going to help Genevieve with some of the words, because Genevieve has come down with a very sore throat and cough, and Philomena agreed to step in and help her. So we are honored to have both of you tonight, and I will turn the show over to both of you.
Ishka, thank you for that beautiful introduction, Carolyn. I would like to acknowledge that I am providing this conversation from Quw'utsun territory, unceded lands of the Cowichan people, where they've been living for millennia. When I first began doing acknowledgements, I would ask Philomena and other elders, what should I say as to how many years? And I was told to say millennia, that we have been here forever. And it's, I'm just totally pumped and stoked that Teresa invited me in the fall, and I just want to express how much I appreciate Teresa's patience and the many emails. My life is complicated with my beloved husband having Alzheimer's and disease. He was diagnosed 3 years ago. Many of you know him, and I know he was a very popular speaker some years ago talking on restoration. And the changes since Teresa wrote me have kept changing how and what I was going to do about this, and I am very, very deeply disappointed not to be doing this in person as I planned until a few days ago, but it just became too complicated. However, there's always a silver lining in things, and to have Philomena do this with me wouldn't have easily happened in Vancouver. So I'm just really excited, and it's my total pleasure to introduce my CM, my friend and elder, who I've learned an incalculable amount from, Philomena Williams. I'm going to try Philomena, Hul'q'umi'num Taiwatha. Am I close on your name?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I am a very beginner Hul'q'umi'num learner. I was welcomed into Philomena's family and have been learning since. Philomena is very well known in the Valley for her sharing, her big heart and her sharing of culture and language. She was an elder with Vancouver Island University until she had to retire to caregive to her wonderful husband, Peter Williams. She has been working for a long time, passing on her gifts and requests from her mother, Violet Williams, to share language and culture. Philomena worked with Parks Canada on a special project on rare species that was shared around southern Vancouver Island, and it came out of the new Gulf Island National Park. And she's worked on many, many other projects. She's a mother and grandmother and a very good friend to many of us. So very appreciative of Philomena helping me with my bad voice and my anxiety around the Hul'q'umi'num. So, oh, here we are. I could have moved to this picture earlier. So here's Peter, and this is at a special spot many of you would have visited when you came to the Cowichan Valley Naturalist AGM a few years ago. And this is at Samana Marsh, the big marsh right along the highway. And I'm going to share with you the people, because I am just a conduit tonight of many, many people that have shared knowledge. The most important piece of that is my time spent outdoors in Mother Nature. Growing up, I had a very, very fortunate childhood. I spent a lot of time outdoors, and I joined the junior naturalists of the Victoria Naturalists when I was 10 with Skipper Freeman King. And that's where I met my friend Nancy, who back in the days seemed really, really old because she's about 8 years older than me. So I hardly talked to her and I was in awe of her, but now we're good friends. And her sister was my best friend, Barb Chapman. And BC Nature has a scholarship named after Barb, who sadly passed away in her early 20s. Barb and I and all my other friends through the naturals had a lot of fun, and that led on to me going into biology. And so I met Bob there on the left many years ago, and then Lashim Arvid Charlie is in the center there. And I think I forgot to take the photo of the book, but 2 issues ago, I think it was, a BC Nature, I did a review of the book that Nancy and Lashim wrote called Lashim's Plants. And I highly, highly recommend it. It's a great book. It's not, although it's focused on Cowichan, it's very useful for, well, anywhere in BC. There's just tons of stuff in it. Other people who have supported me, here's Ken Elliott, who I do a lot of work with, and he is key in restoration work in the valley and has worked closely with my husband. We have a lot of fun doing programs with children. And then here's my husband on the left last summer with his good friend, that's Tim Kolchowski on the right. And Tim works with me and all of us as a Cowichan tribes biologist, but much more, and is very knowledgeable. Here's my friend Della Rice Sylvester. She and I will be leading a walk on the weekend, and she is a medicine woman. Here she is at Bright Angel Park. And then Jared. This picture is from River Day that the Cowichan Stewardship Roundtable holds with Cowichan tribes a few years ago, and we'll be talking about what he's carrying here on the bite. I don't have another picture of this, so do look on the back left. You can see the peak one, which is the salmon barbecue down on the banks of the Cowichan River, and he's bringing the food over for our big meal that we're going to join in of several hundred people. Jared, if those of you that are interested in the conversation I'm having, is very busy. He's retired from his work, just a young man of 40, as Cowichan Tribes chef. He has a wide background as Indigenous chef, but he's retired from that and is going full-time as a dad, but also in working really hard to share knowledge around food, Indigenous concerns, and you can follow him on Facebook. He's runs a Patreon account, and I would suggest, he's very interesting to follow. I wanted to just mention, because some of you on the talk tonight will remember my beloved friend, Eric Marshall. He was our president for many, many years, and it was a big part of that last AGM, and attended most of the AGMs through the province. And here we are in Salt Spring Island when they hosted the AGM some years ago. We both got an award, and you can tell we're pretty happy. We had a lot of fun together, Eric and I just wanted to bring him into talking tonight. So Amina, this is the first plant that I thought we'd talk about.
Hey.
And that's our Western red cedar.
Mhm.
This is super important plant. And there was a gathering held last week at Cowichan Lake. One of Philomena's brothers has been carrying a concern, along with many others, but in particular concern he had from hearing Dr. Richard Hebda speak a few years ago about that cedar is under siege in many locations in British Columbia, in particular due to drought, to climate change, but other issues. So we have particular concerns, and Philomena's family and others have taken this on, and we had a 3-day gathering. We'll be having a public talk on Monday, and we're looking at many aspects as to how to engage our forestry community with Mosaic and others in the conversation about how are we going to protect this incredibly spiritually and culturally important tree. Here is got a couple of pictures. This is Belinda Claxton on the left. No, sorry, on the right with the short black hair, and then her friend Sandra on the left, and Nancy Turner on the far left there, and I don't know the individual on the right. This was at Wildwood, and we did a cedar pull. And this bark is used for many, many things, traditionally and currently.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to say anything, Mina? It's difficult with us not being in the same room to know when to.
I know the this tree is a very, very, very it's really it's really very sacred tree to many of our peoples, and every part of this tree was and still is used, except for it's very I was very shocked to hear that they even use this for diapers for our babies. And I thought, wow, such patience, such knowledge that our Salhuan had on how to prepare some of this and how to use it and how to care for this. And we've had a couple of sessions where we've gone down to Bright Angel Park to plant some cedar trees, and there was a hope that my brother Tuxilum would have. I think they at first thought they could plant 1,000 trees on the whole of Vancouver Island, but after a couple of sessions, they thought, well, I don't think they'll make it to Port Hardy. But a lot of there are many uses that was used. This tree was used for many uses. But I always talk about the diapers because I'm thinking, there's this here is the bark, but they had such patience to make this bark very, very soft for babies to use, right? Because their little bottoms are as soft as anything, and how could they use that this year? But they had ways of softening this and all of that knowledge.
Ishka. This is a bundle of bark that Mina got from a contact of hers. But I realize I don't have the really hard work of this. Because this is the cleaned bark. And at first, when I first started working with cedar, I didn't understand at all how much work it is to clean off the thick bark that we see, that outer bark on the tree. That has to be cleaned off before you get to this stage. I have a few pictures of a few things that we can talk about. This is, with children, I always ask them to guess what this is. And it takes a lot of work. Anybody out there in the audience who knows? I'm not hearing from anybody, but I bet you any those pen girls know that I see over there. I'm sure they know. So this is a baler. And it is so cool because this is something one can easily make from your firewood pile if you've got some cedar. And I always remind the children, there was a day before plastic and using ice cream buckets, right, in your boat. And this is something critical you have. And so it's a sheet of bark. You of course soak it, squish it up. You got your piece of cedar wood, and let me show you the next picture from a different angle. And you can see on the top right and left how the strip of cedar bark is crisscrossed around and tied off. And there, without having to go to a store, not made in a factory, you've got your own baler. Mina, do you want to say anything?
I think this was mainly used on the canoes when they traveled long distances. And if there was water getting into the canoe, they'd use this baler to get the water out of there. And you had to be very, very, very you had to be able to use this proper, and you know, you can't just dawdle along and take one scoop out here and a little bit there. You had to really be very, very fast at it. And
oh, and can you imagine if you didn't have something and that water started coming in? It's just mind-boggling, the ingenuity. Now, this is a little treasure. My friend, I don't think I've shown this to you, Mina. It's in one of my boxes in the basement for the cedar programs. My friend Lorna picked this up in a thrift store about 3 years ago for about $2.
wow, good.
Yeah, so we have it in our teaching boxes. And so that we believe it's spruce roots, but on the top, on the little basket, you can see the cedar strip around the top. And then you can see that cedar is the underlying formation of the basket. So that's pretty cool.
Huh. I wonder if that was naturally dyed. I don't know.
I don't know either. This is something, I'm not sure who made this. This was made a good 30 years ago, and before I joined the Cowichan Valley docents, but this is a halibut hook. And there's a couple of angles I want to share with you here. You can see the cedar stripping that's been used on both ends. And then the white thing is a piece of bone, and the bait gets stuck on there. The whole hook is hung on a line. You would have several lines going at once. And it's, but what is very interesting is that the actual hook is made out of yew. And this has been soaked for a long time. And Hilary Stewart, in her book about cedar, has some amazing diagrams about it. So that can lead us into this amazing and interesting tree.
That Quw'utsun.
And this means bow tree. And I, being a British Irish descent, find this so interesting because my parents immigrated before I was born from near London after the war, and very difficult circumstances. And when I finally went for a visit over there, every churchyard had a yew tree. And I was told, I don't know if this is true, but anyways, that you could be rushing out from church because war had been declared, and you could whip off and make a bow right there on the spot, and you'd be ready to go. Which is interesting about thou shalt not kill, but anyways, so I think, and then, so it was known overseas, on the other side of the world as the bow tree as well. And so it's always interesting to me how different cultures, we often figure out the same uses of things without necessarily being in touch. But a really interesting wood, hard to find. We don't have a lot of them in the valley. Of course, many had their bark stripped back in the days when was being used and formulated for breast cancer medication. But now that's made synthetically. So, but they're very slow growing trees. They don't grow very large. Mina, what would you like to say?
No, not anything more.
I got a nice picture of the bark here. Just such a beautiful tree. I'm going to have later on a picture of a digging stick made from this very, very hard wood. And I know for many cultures, it also has spiritual connections. Oh, darn. I ended up, I don't, if many of you have worked on PowerPoints before, somehow I ended up working on 2 versions at the same time. Very frustrating. So I can see here, I haven't got the Hul'q'umi'num word for grand fir handy. So I'm just going to move on.
That one's dog.
Oh, okay.
Also known as balsam, hey?
Yes, you're right. Oh, Dennis, that worked going backwards, the arrow button, super. What I wanted to mention about this is it makes a really great tea. This is my favorite needle to eat, the fresh ones, because it tastes like grapefruit, I think, and really nice, great in tea, as are all the conifers, but I think grand fir is the best. And I heard rumors that there was an ice cream place in Victoria making grand fir ice cream, but I never tracked it down, but apparently it was a hit.
Should have went to track one down for your throat, the blister or the itch from it.
Oh, that would be a good idea. Are you okay for the word on this? TS glottal EY?
Sight.
Site. Douglas fir, and again, my apologies for losing my text boxes. Here you've got these fresh buds that are super tasty to eat, and lots of people gather these and dry them up, so you've got a tea all year round. You'll notice in the cone there's a bit of pitch, and I just wanted to mention, and in Les Sheem's book he talks a fair bit about pitch of different conifers being used for medication uses.
And you can make jam out of this one as well. And Arvid's name is Las Cheem.
Las Cheem, Hul'q'umi'num.
I'll say it slow so we can get the sound right. Okay.
Las
Cheem.
Cheem. My apologies. Oh yeah, I'd forgotten about the jam, and also the marinating it in honey and making a spread. Oh yeah. And the pitch was used in torches. I was out for a walk recently with Tim Kolchewski, and he had me trying all the different pitches. A bit of a taste challenge, but very interesting. So I haven't got any. This is a fun little sequence my husband Dave Polster put together years ago, and I just do this for fun. This is to remind us of what will soon be over your way in Vancouver, but definitely in our valley, the most numerous flower in a few weeks' time, and I'm going to let you guess what it is. Here we've got a bit of a close-up of it, and I like to play around with photography. And here we are.
Or Cumanalp. Or Cumanalp.
Do either of those words have a connection with the word paddle?
Maybe Cumanalp.
Because I've often heard it's also called the paddle tree. This is a tremendous tree. There's just, it's just so much to say about it, about the amount of space it takes in the tree canopy space. We had a huge one break off in a little park I look after, and there's just this huge gap in the sky that's appeared in the last few weeks since the tree broke. There's so many uses of it. I like to eat the flowers fresh or throw them in a salad. You can make a great quiche with them. The wood is very important culturally, used in all sorts of wood things, but in particular, it's the special one, I understand, for paddle making. And then something that's come later, wasn't used traditionally here, is making a maple syrup, and that's something we do on our property, which is very small. We just got 3 trees, but we have fun doing that. and a glorious tree any time of year.
Oh, beautiful. And Peter, my Peter, when they were doing the buildings down on Allenby Road for our band office, the tribal offices, there was a lot of maple trees there. So Peter went and got some pieces of wood there, and then he got a few pieces to make a slingshot. And he made a slingshot for Mom's Christmas gift that year. And she was a real slicker with that slingshot, and her cousin, the male cousins were very, very not. That wasn't too. That wasn't good for them, for mother to beat them in slingshot.
How old would your mom have been there then?
When they were teenagers, and there was always a lot of what do you call that? Sports days down at the time. Not Quw'utsun. Yeah, Quw'utsun was the biggest reserve then. There was over 3,000 people there then, and they'd have these games, and then slingshot was one of them. I think she could they had a 50-cent piece. I forget how many yards, and then they'd see who would be able to shoot at that and get that 50-cent piece. Back in the day when they had 50-cent pieces.
Oh, wow. Love that.
So enough.
My friend Tim talks about his grandmother having her first toy was a doll carved out of this heavy, thick, kind of pithy bark, and it was quite popular and used for toy making. I've heard stories of children being told not to play near these or to be very careful climbing the trees. That was a story that would be passed down because they do break off easily. And I keep meaning to try this, that especially near water where the cottonwood gets eroded. The red roots are still being used for shampoo. And Les Cheam says, simmer, be sure not to boil. Fabulous tree. Here we've got those beautiful leaves, such an important part of our leaf litter. And here's a puddle I found with alder catkins, but the cottonwood catkins, which is made.
That's the part you use for the shampoo, are those catkins.
Sorry, Mina, I coughed on top of you. What did you say about the catkins?
That's the part that you would use to make shampoo.
Oh, okay. We have made this salve with olive oil traditionally. It was with bear fat. This is from Lillooet Nation up by Lillooet. And if I had been lucky enough to be with you in person, I would have been passing this around for you to smell. And I'm sure most of you know for me, it's just the best perfume in the world is the fresh buds of cottonwood, balm of Gilead. But also a beautiful cream to use in your skin and heal with.
Wasp.
So this is our Gary Oak. We are most fortunate where we live. We probably have some of the largest patches of good habitat for Gary Oak left on Vancouver Island. Of course, many of you know that it's a highly endangered ecosystem and one that I've been very engaged with over the years. There's lots of interesting things one could say about the acorns. They were an important traditional food south of the border, but they weren't here. And I have read several accounts of how much incredible work it took to turn this into a foodstuff of continued boiling and storing it and to make it useful. And that's not something that the elders are aware of where we live. This is on the Nature Conservancy property out in the Maple Bay area, probably one of the most glorious oaks in the world. And when we did the AGM, some of you may have joined me when I brought you down to our Bring Back the Bluebirds project. And this is the property that we have worked the most with on bringing back the Western bluebird too, which is still a highly challenged project. But this project, this bluebird thing, has been taken on as a way to gain people's interest, because we still are not getting the traction to understand this Gary Oak ecosystem was incredibly important to Cowichan peoples and covered many, many miles and was integral to their lifestyle and culture. And when you look at this open glade, and I read the stories of the early settlers of white people coming in to Vancouver Island, the southern end, and they came in and it reminded them of jolly old England, and with that sort of savanna and the big trees and stuff. What there wasn't awareness of, they get out and it's all great, is that the people weren't there because it was summertime and they were off fishing and doing the different seasonal work. And it was many, many years before there was that full understanding of this wasn't just wild land and getting salmon and hunting, but the land was farmed and taken care of with the use of fire and cultivation and many other things. I just love springtime where I live. It is so beautiful. And this is Spen Camas, and comes with a whole suite of other flowers. This area has been treated by fire in the last about 7 years ago, and has been very successful. Here we have a close-up of it. I do have to mention, and there isn't a Hul'q'umi'num word, or it's been lost to history, which has happened, of course, to so many parts of the language and the damage done by residential school and colonization. But it's important to mention Death Camas because the bulbs look similar when one is harvesting, and this is another example of the ingenuity of these, when they would come out into bloom in the patches in the fields of Camas Spen, these would be, the white ones would be removed. It is significantly poisonous. This is a picture that Nancy Turner sent to me, and this is, she didn't have the name, just the first name, Victoria, but Victoria is holding this beautiful Camas Spen digging stick made out of yew, and this was made by Clan Chief Adam Dick. So super special to see that, and you can imagine the hard work of getting out in the field and digging up those bulbs, which were a really special, important food in the springtime. After, you know, by the end of the winter, you're getting tired of your winter food. I just got a quick picture here of being at Wildwood, where Nancy Turner led us in a pit cook. And it did not have Spen or Camas. I haven't eaten it myself because it's still so rare. I'm growing it and I've been engaged in planting it, but it's just not common enough. But we live in the hope that we will be able to join in community. I sure hope in Philomena's of my lifetime, and be holding a pit cook in the valley where we live with Spen. This pit cook and other ones I've attended have been with vegetables and sometimes salmon added. But traditionally these holes were dug, rocks were made hot in a fire and lifted in by wooden tongs into the bottom. So you'd have your hot rocks, and I say to children, this is like a crock pot in the ground. And you'd have your hot rock laid down. Just giving you a very quick synopsis. It's kind of scary to have some of you in the audience who can say so much more. But then you would lay out branches perhaps of salal and sword fern and other plants. Lay your food out, more branches to cover the food up, cover it up with dirt and let it cook away. And that's really fun to be involved with something like that. Do you want to do the word in red at the top, Ina? Oh, we've lost you. I think you don't have your mic on.
What the heck? Ewok.
Oh, that's a great word. Thank you. I'm pretty pumped on this right now. Let me see. Let me just check. Oh, it doesn't say if it's red or black. Probably it's black elderberry cough syrup I bought today.
Red elderberry.
But let's show you a couple more pictures. Here's the close-up. And then here's those gorgeous red berries, eh? They're just fantastic. Anything you want to add there, Mina?
Awa. See and see and see and
Beautiful. Such strong, amazing words. And I have most of the plant names in my brain now, or many of them, for Hul'q'umi'num. And even though I can't pronunciate them, I really want to emphasize this evening, and I've brought it forward to Nature BC over the years, of the importance of each one of us learning some of the words of the languages, the first languages of where we live, and the importance of reaching out and gathering together with our love of nature and the natural world, with the Indigenous people where we live. This is the work we are called for, and we must do. And what it has brought to me is knowing these words when I'm walking alone along my beloved riverbank, Statlow, is sometimes I feel I can hear those words resonating forward that have been used there for millennia. And I just find it extremely powerful and amazing experience to get to know the language where I live, and that's been used. Hul'q'umi'num is one of several dialects, right, Mina?
yes.
And there's some words that are a bit different, even not far from us in Nanaimo. And a little bit different also on Penelakut. But then it's a different dialogue altogether over in Vancouver. And that's spelled like Halko.
Hul'q'umi'num.
Yeah. And then when you visit down south of the border, that's another one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just imagine that. Oh, I'm just mind boggled at, over millennia, these languages being worked on, and the importance, as we all know, of encouraging, supporting, keeping these languages when already so many have been lost.
Mm-hmm.
Red osier is an important plant. I just want to mention on its importance in restoration, a cause that's close to my heart. This is one of the 3 magic plants, as my husband calls it: red osier, willows, and cottonwood, all in the right locations with the right amount of moisture, and done correctly can be, live stakes can be cut right off of live trees, inserted in the ground. And when we organized the Zoom party for my husband's retirement, which Philomena was so kind to join us on, there was so many people that talked about thousands of acres through Yukon, Northern Alberta, British Columbia, that have been restored from students that learned under Dave using those magic species, the wonder of nature that can put itself in the ground and keep growing and restore areas. These berries are edible. I mean, I'm not rushing out to eat them, but they're all right. And this is one of my favorites.
Quw'utsun. Quw'utsun.
And this is the red huckleberry, just a gem of a plant. I always think when the berries come out, and this is the one right by my front door, that they look like little Christmas ornaments. And now I'm going to show you something that is so special to me.
Mhm.
And Philomena gifted this to me, one of the most precious gifts I've ever been given. And Philomena, would you mind sharing about it?
This one was made, I think, specifically for I'll say picking huckleberries, but rather than pick the berries one at a time, some brilliant chap I was able to make this beautiful, beautiful. People think it's a comb, but it's more for the huckleberry berry. Just comb the berries out, I suppose, from the bush, right?
Yeah, and I gather one would have a cedar mat, one would lie underneath, or nowadays it's a tarp.
Mm-hmm.
And then you comb through the bush. When I showed it to Nancy Turner, she didn't know what it was at all.
Mm.
Also, there's great interest in the handle part where that orange waxy substance is.
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't learned anything further, Philomena, have you, about what that is? Because
Oh, the comb that I have is more. It's done with more the bark. This one seems to be done with some kind of leather and string. But I don't know if I had this one sent to the museum. The one I have was sent to the museum, and they were saying it was yew wood, but you were thinking it wasn't yew, right?
well, I wondered if it was ironwood, ocean spray. And the reason I thought that is because those tips are blackened, and that is a technique used on ironwood to keep it really hard. But
Hard.
since then I've wondered about it. Why would you need really tough ends just to pick little soft huckleberries?
Well, perhaps maybe I don't know how much slivers would be in there, but I'm thinking of that. Uh-huh.
And then the other one that was made with stinging nettle fiber, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And even at that, it was made in the 1800s, and I could still pull on that and it, you know how it is, something centuries old. So you touch it and then it just
Yeah,
crumbles.
stinging nettle is just amazing. And then there's also the intrigue of looking at the pattern of the crisscross in that bottom part. Like, it's not just slapped together, it's made with artistry.
Mm-hmm.
And Kim Reclama Clutusi is very interested in that waxy portion. And yeah, there's a lot of interest in this beautiful, very useful, sensible thing for gathering food.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to share this picture because I didn't use the comb because it's too precious. But I tried making a little one, and this is what I managed to gather after about an hour of. It's a lot harder, I think, these days. We don't have as many berries, eh?
Not as many.
And then the little basket I made is out of the thimbleberry leaf. And probably many of you have done this, where you fold it and then you use a little piece of the thimbleberry stem to pick it together. And then I brought this to Philomena. It's the wrong berries, but she has shared with me the story of when you go to a visitor's, or when a visitor came to you, Philomena.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it would be, the picture's further along, but it would be thimbleberries in particular, right?
No, it was huckleberries
Oh, okay.
or salmon berries too.
Salmon berries, yeah.
Yes.
So I put in ocean spray. Mina, can you help me with the Hul'q'umi'num word?
I think this one is Keithal. This one says Keithal, but I think it's Keithal.
Oh,
Ironwood.
And so I wanted, because I had the thought that possibly that cone is made from it. And then also about the Pequan,
Pequan, Pequan.
salmon barbecue sticks. And I showed you the picture earlier of Jared with his crazy red mohawk hairstyle crossing over the log. Well, this is him bringing it over to the table.
Hmm.
And so the long, what's the word? The poles are ocean spray.
Mhm.
And Jared says the crossing, what's the word there? Spreaders?
Mhm.
That he tended to use smaller branches as the same tree or sometimes cedar. Some people use snowberries for those spreaders. And there was a little bit in the book that I've written here over in the side. So you split the pole, not all the way down. You
Mhm.
split the pole, slip your fillet salmon in between, and then you put in your spreaders, and then you put the pole in the ground and lean it so that it can cook. Again, nothing from a store, right?
Mhm. Lila.
And
Lila.
these are not in bud even yet, where the places where I walk, but I'm excited that they will be soon.
And this is one of the berries that was put, if you had visitors come, you'd give them a bowl or a saucer full of the dried salmon berries, and you know, to acknowledge that you're very grateful for that visitor to come, and then you're sharing some of your goods.
Beautiful tradition.
Mhm.
This plant is another example of cultivation. The patches of Leah would be passed down in families. They'd be pruned and taken care of.
Tuckwum. Tuckwum. Oh, that one's tuckwum. That's not a G, should be a Q. Tuckwum. Tuckwum.
Yikes. I think you corrected me on that before, and I thought I changed that. Oh dear, how embarrassing. Okay, we'll move on. Pretend you didn't see that. This is a big patch up by Bowser. Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
Hmm.
And the thing that always captures children's interest is, and I'm sure it was used back in the day, is this is the best natural toilet paper out there. So good to know where it is. Lullets.
Lullets.
Only a few years ago did a child say to me, do you ever smell this? And I never had. And it's got the most gorgeous perfume, the flowers.
I've never did that.
They're edible. I also really like eating the very new leaves, very new. Of course, I'm not going to chow down on these ones here, but they're just when they're really fresh, they have a lovely lemony taste.
Hmm.
And then of course there's the berries. One story I've heard is a game being played, and I wish I'd heard of it when my children were younger, where you would have a mouthful of these, and the person who all your friends would get a mouthful at the same time, and the person who could keep chewing and keep them in their mouth long enough before they freaked out from them being too sour won the game. And I'm sure all of you make things with these. I like to use them straight up with onion inside of when I've got a whole salmon. And of course, they make the great jelly and a super great juice. And they're a great thing to eat if you're thirsty on the trail. Lifts your thirst. Many uses of them for medicinal purposes. And the bark, I haven't done this very much, but I have used some for dyeing, and it makes an interesting yellow color, and also the roots and many other things. Mina, do you want to say anything?
Somebody's asking a question on chat.
Oh, I can't really see chat. Okay.
Oh.
I'll read it
Oh,
out loud. Bengal asked, are the flowers of Oregon grape also edible?
yes, they are. What's that? What is Rosemary saying about how does the pulling back get the tip off? What's that about?
That was very early on when you were showing photos of pulling from the bottom a strip of cedar bark. When you were talking about the
Oh, okay. Yes, of course. I was thinking of berries and things.
see the bottom,
Um,
but not sure about the top.
yeah, so I can just say quickly something about the bark. It has to be done in the springtime and when the sap is running so that it lifts easily. And you keep, so it's the importance is the right time of year in the spring when the elders have decided and that know exactly how to do this. And Mina can add more, and eventually it gets thinner and thinner as it gets towards to the top of the tree. And it when I've watched,
I think the more important thing on this when they're harvesting something like that, right, is to have a prayer first to
yeah,
thank you for letting me use some of this and to be very, very strong in your mind that you are there to do this particular thing. And some can have it straight up really far. And your swallowing has to be very, very, you know, you're there, you're honoring, you're also honoring the plant, and your presence there is also needs to be very, very clear that you're there to take this plant, to use it for your whatever you're harvesting, whatever you're going to use it for, and be very thankful for it. And I don't know if I have to stress that there isn't anything taken out that's harvested that's not thanked. You know, people have to thank anything for their use, even the hunters when they go out, the fishermen when they go out. They're very thankful for the, you know, for what they are out there hunting for or fishing for or harvesting the berries. Okay.
yes, very, very important.
Genevieve, Jane is asking about your Oregon grape having a lemon taste.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, you did say that, right?
The leaves are definitely like lemon. The flowers, well, sounds like Jane, you think so. I'll have to try some soon and check it out again. I'm not sure how, I don't know. I thought they were tasty.
Mm-hmm. Aka is the soil.
There's the berries, important plant now and then. Berries would be dried and made into cakes, used in trading, but of course important fresh. It's the important riparian species used now if you're doing restoration, but traditionally where we live, was perhaps still is great for making knitting needles with.
Quw'utsun. Devil's Club.
It's Erica McLaren with BC Parks, visiting Honeymoon Bay Ecological Reserve, where the pink lilies are that some of you have traveled to with me there. Just showing you, because she's very tall, how big it can get. And here's a picture I got up on the Skeena, visiting my family. The berries up there for Devil's Club are so much more vigorous and brighter, and just a whole lot more, just amazing forest up there. Very important cultural plant, many uses that are private. Lots of research going on and using it medicinally in Western medicine. Certainly looking at it as a diabetic thing, and yeah, a lot of other important uses. Oops, sorry. Mina said this a word earlier. I'm going to give it a go. Thak, a stinging nettle, and just an extraordinary plant used a lot locally, mostly in food stuff now, but historically the word nettle are related, and it's used by around the northern half of the globe for making string and fiber out of. Mina mentioned about the old piece that she had that was still strong. Sorry, I seem to have pulled up the wrong, as I had a couple of pictures I thought I'd put in there of our first sprouts just coming up. I like to use it in anywhere where I would use spinach, like making a quiche and stuff. And here we have our awesome, I'm not going to tackle that word. Looks like Mina's had to step away. I hope it's not about her husband. But we got our skunk cabbage.
I'm back, Genevieve.
You're back. Okay, I want you to, this is such a cool plant.
Oh, that one is a difficult word too.
Wow.
Wild ginger.
And the root, I'm just thinking about how seldom I've tried it, because I find from being a child to now is much harder to find this plant. Even in places where I know it used to grow, I can't find it anymore. Sometimes I wonder if people are taking it, or is it one of those groups of plants and animals that are alerting us to for some time that there's a concern, and it's particularly noticing changes in climate. I wonder, I don't know. The brown flowers are, I just think, so spectacular, and they don't need to be bright and showy because ants and slugs, centipedes are all part of the pollinating crowd that visit these and help spread its seeds around.
I know the places that I used to find that the animals are coming further down now, like the cougars and bears are coming more into they're coming closer to the city.
Well, that could...
where we used to find that there's cougars, and that even up in Georgetown where the rest of my family lives, there's cougars and bears in that area.
Yeah, and quite a lot more, right?
Yes.
But we've got all that logging around us too. And then I wanted to close with this little beauty, just because it's just such a gorgeous flower that Philomena and I both just really like, and I know her mom did too.
Quw'utsun. Or high tap.
Yeah, I guess that would be better. So our gratitude, appreciation to all of you on joining us on a little journey in the valley that we love so much. And I'm just so incredibly fortunate and moved that Philomena was able to join us and bring so much more to the conversation, which we do hope you've enjoyed this evening.
If I could just mention about the Hul'q'umi'num, it's very, very new to have Hul'q'umi'num written. The elders, even in the late 90s, didn't want our language to be written, and I can understand now why that, you know, with especially when we were talking about XPEY, Anuk, we've had to use the dominant language for our sounds. I don't call it the Hul'q'umi'num alphabet. I call it the Hul'q'umi'num sounds because of the like XPEY. How do we write? How do we write? So we've had to use the English to somewhat have our language written. Before that was always an oral language, always. So just something to add about that.
Well, that's quite mind-boggling. I mean, when I moved here, a lot of you were just working on the dictionary, and I couldn't sort of comprehend it coming from such a long written thing, and then to realize that importance of memory and in ceremony and that of the storytelling and the passing things through orally. And I think that's one of the reasons why I find the language so difficult is I am so focused on the Western approach of visual reading, right? I have no real, I don't need, I mean, I know with my parents, they memorized all these poems in school. Well, I didn't do any of that. I mean, I haven't done much in sort of really working at using the memory in carrying forward learnings and teachings. And when I would go to class and hear everybody would sit in a group and everybody would be talking, and I'd be the only one that just had to write it down and had to be able to see the words. And yeah, so it's just really, really interesting. It's so powerful to live in a community where in my own lifetime, a dictionary has been made.
And just to let you know that it's very complex sometimes, but English Hul'q'umi'num is also very, very unique in that there's 26 ways to, like, we can't just say, you can say one body, one bottle, one finger, but in Hul'q'umi'num, it has its own word for those specific things. For one body and one drink, they're very specific to what that is. And one word we couldn't get was, I don't know if many of you are familiar with how clams sound when you're digging clams and you put it in your bucket. It kind of goes something like that. But anyway, we couldn't get an English word for it. And I come up with 12 different English words. They said, no, that's not it. But we did get 12 Hul'q'umi'num words, trying to figure out what English word to use for the sound the clam makes when it's in the tub or sack.
Oh, I love that.
So that was great. So thanks again so much for sharing your wonderful knowledge with us.
Namaskar.
Thank you from Salt Spring.
Hi, tap. I gonna see lamnala at nachwana and the humidi yes to this to so when it is man ernst. It looks to the chef. Monkwet. Praying for all of the elders and our children in our families, and keep that light, keep that path shining with each and every one of you. Hi, Tapka. Thank you all.
Hi, Nate.
Hi, Snate.
Good night.